we all get to see these things differently. I mean, you could put 10 people around the room and all 10 people could see it a little bit differently. And, people have different viewpoints based on different experiences that they have. And that's no different than basically anything else in the world. Like if you ask one mom, how do you do this with your 1-year-old versus another mom, every mom is going to have a different of opinion. Mm-hmm. So, what I'll say as we patch Butchie back into the show here is people need to not be as angry. It's okay to disagree.
You're telling people to not be angry about people?
It's okay to disagree. It's okay that we may not see something the same way.
Bucci, tell me you're hearing this. Tell me your audio is good and you're hearing Kobe's face.
It's okay to disagree, Johnny. And yes, you do look a lot clearer now, Butchie. So I think we should be good to go.
Good. So I turned the phone off and on. That's worked since 1974. Unplug it, plug it back in. It's whatever it is. There's science behind that.
It's like a dial-up. It's like a dial-up modem. So, we're talking about the beginning of this series, and I think the big question that everybody has now is that can the Edmonton Oilers climb back into this series, going back to Edmonton? And yesterday, I said to Frank on Daily Faceoff Live when he asked me what my number out of 10 of concern was, and I said a 6 or a 7 because you haven't lost on home ice yet, and game to game can look very different in the playoffs. So what would you say your feeling on this series is? Is this going to end with the broomsticks, or will we see a little extension and the series tighten up?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably be around 7 to 7.5 to be a concern that Edmonton can make this a series. Home ice hasn't mattered a lot in this postseason. So maybe that adage was formulated back in the day when, home ice was maybe more 65, 70% success rate, because now we're below 50%. I just think the way Florida kind of found their game and attack, that's going to be the way they do this the rest of the way. But the big thing for Edmonton is pretty simple. They have to score 1 or 2 power play goals a game. They just have to. And then they got to try to find one more 5-on-5 goal and try to win 3-2. To me, that's like the Edmonton formula. Is going to be something like that. We could get a crazy game where someone's tired and mistakes and Florida's not up to it on that particular night, and maybe things can pop a certain way. And they could get a 5-2 win or something. I guess that's possible. But it's really going to come down to, now that Florida can smell it, I think this is a desperate team that has a lot of focus. And now they're up 2-0. They know tomorrow night is really a game 7. That's a game 7 mentality for Edmonton, and it should be for Florida, because if they win, they're already probably going to win. They're probably not going to lose 4 out of 5 to anybody. Mm-hmm. But they win game 3, then they're almost definitely almost certainly probably going to win. So game 3 is like a game 7. That's why I really hope Edmonton wins, because then game 4 becomes a game 7 as well. Edmonton still has to win. They're not going to come back from 3-1. And then that sets up game 5. And game 5 is not a game 7, because it doesn't really matter who – you can come back. You can lose that game and still win 2 in a row. And then game 6 becomes a game 7. And then, of course, game 7 is a game 7. So
we're on the same wavelength here.
So, yeah, we have a chance for 4 game 7s, but Edmonton has to pick up their end of the bargain and win game 3. And like I said, that starts with a big-time power play goal. And for them, a 5-on-5 goal. Obviously, you'd love, a bottom 6 guy to get it, perhaps. But Leon and Connor to do something and shoot the puck.
There's the social clip, Vic. Is this the first Stanley Cup final in history with 4 game 7s?
4.
That's the caption we're rolling with. I love that. That's something I would say for sure.
So look, we've definitely talked about the series quite a bit. We brought you on here, Butchie, to talk to you about some of the other things going on around the NHL. And it does sound like there was some, I wouldn't call it breaking news, but David Quinn officially announced by Pittsburgh on Twitter. Once it comes from the team account, that means that the paperwork has been crossed. The press release has gone out. A move that makes a lot of sense. I mean, these guys are BU teammates, friends, Boston guys. Quinny is known to be this really good defensive teacher, had a great relationship with Erik Karlsson in San Jose, a great relationship. And look, to me, Pittsburgh got better today. Like, I think that's a great hire.
That's good, but funny. I didn't think about all that stuff, Colby. I just saw. In fact, when I was rebooting, I saw the email when I rebooted my phone that they got hired. I didn't even know that was a whisper. I'm surprised I didn't hear it from either you or McDonough or somebody. But I didn't even hear a whisper. But yeah, you're right. The defensive, because he's been a head coach for so long, I forgot about his focus as a defenseman. You know, he'll run the D in Pittsburgh. They needed that. There was an opening there as they made the switch on the bench. And not only Erik Karlsson, but really some of those young guys, because that's what the Penguins need to lift some of their young guys to play better defensively. And like you said, Karlsson had a great year under Quinney. That was his job, to go to San Jose to build his value, to trade him. That's a big reason why that was Quinney's job with Erik Karlsson. And so that was his job, and now he was traded, and here he is back with them. Now his job is obviously to get him to play at that high level, to win, and to make the playoffs, and to win a playoff round or two, or how many they can get with Sidney Crosby in this group's final act. So yeah, I think it's a good hire for Quinney, a little closer back to the East Coast, back to his Rhode Island home, and working with a fellow BU Terry. In fact, remember when Jack Parker retired, that was obviously a coveted job. Quinney wanted it. Mike Sullivan wanted it. John Hines wanted it. It's just amazing. And now, those three guys as of last year were all head coaches in the league, all went for the BU job, and Quinney got it. And so now they're working together again. They sound a lot alike. They have the similar Boston accent.
They look alike.
I was going to say, that's a good-looking bench right there.
And so, yeah, so it's a loud projecting bench behind there with plenty of volume. So it's going to be fun. Good to have Quinney back, and I think he'll enjoy Pittsburgh. He'll love that atmosphere, and he'll love the town.
I kind of have a two-parter, Bucci, just building off that a little bit, like sticking with the theme here, but also looking a little bit ahead. Macklin Celebrini kind of came out with comments that he was disappointed that David Quinn got fired by San Jose, and they haven't hired a new coach yet. Is there still any world where you can see Macklin Celebrini going back to BU after being drafted, or is it just he's going number one and then he's going to the NHL?
Yeah, I see zero chance of that happening. I think the Sharks will make their decision pretty soon on their head coach. I'd put my money on Warsofsky if I had to bet a paycheck. That'd be my guy. I think they're going to hire. But I don't know what they're waiting for. I really don't. But we'll see. Other guys have looked into that job. Jeff Blashill has looked into that job. I kind of hope Jeff gets Columbus. I think that'd be a good fit for him. I think that's I think that all works with what Waddell's looking for and what he likes. And then we'll see. I don't know what kind of relationship or what Don has in mind. He already might have someone in mind. I don't think he'll keep the current staff. I don't know, but I don't think so. So, yeah, I don't think Celebrini will return to BU. I really don't. It would be certainly an outlier. It'd be cool because it would be different. And his dad is a performance coach. And if his dad really believes that's the best thing. And I always say, I tell Cole.
You advocate for it typically, right? To do that second year?
Well, you don't go back for a year. You go back for 7 months. You're not going back for a year. You're doing your normal summer training anyway, right? And then you just go back, and then you either go from October to March in college, then you go turn pro, or you turn pro right away. So really, you're only looking for 5-6 months you're going back to school. You're not going back to school for a year. It's 5-6 months. And that little 5-6 months can just make things a little better. You grow up a little bit more, because obviously every 6 months, when you're older, it's the same 6 months almost every time. When you're that age, 6 months is a big difference,
Look, we saw it with Cutter Gauthier, the difference between year one and year two. I mean, it was night and day difference just with his, maturity in his body, in his strength, in his game. So I'm with Butchie, Johnny. I would say that there's less than a 1% chance that Macklin Celebrini returns to BU, which
I think he should, though. I think he should.
Yeah,
no, I like it because guys can then get in a leadership role. So many guys like Macklin Celebrini, he's always playing up. He's playing up. He's playing up. He's never a captain. He's never a leader in the room because he's always so young. He's always looking, respecting everybody. And I think that's why so many of these kids become timid. Like this new generation of athletes, these 18, 19-year-old hockey players, they come out and they're all so quiet. They don't have a lot of, and that's because they're always young. The best players are so young and they want to respect everybody, which is a good trait to have. It's a good character trait we can all have. Just, slow your roll for a second, but they never get to swell their chest and really create a personality. And that's why I think that Gauthier kind of did that this year. He was kind of the lead dog, where Smith and Perreault and Leonard could kind of follow a little bit. They had their own plenty of confidence, but that's what I like about so many times. These kids play up their whole life and they never develop really these leadership and character personality traits to make them more fun and interesting.
Well, like what a difference it was when we were doing our meetings this year and we were talking to Gauthier and look, Smith, Leonard, Perreault, Fowler, like they were not scared to have conversations with us, but there was a huge difference in the comfortability of what Cutter Gauthier was willing to say to us than basically anybody else at the entire tournament. And for us, it was gold. I mean, other people may have issue, but for us, it was gold.
Right, exactly. And but again, with Celebrini winning the Hobie, he did so much. But yeah, no, I'd love for him to go back and, like I said, 6 more months and try to win a national championship and enjoy college for 1 more year. There's nothing like it. Almost 95% of them wish they had gone back for that extra year. It's probably like a secret fantasy. It's like, oh, I wish, like even Eichel, I'd go back for 1 year.
He wanted to. Jack wanted to go back. But once you get drafted in that spot, it's just so difficult. The pressure that mounts on you being, when you're labeled a generational player, right? Which they're not always labeled that as number 1 and number 2 picks. It's not every year, but that year, Jack Eichel was labeled as a generational talent behind Connor McDavid. And it's not, I don't think it's going to happen. I think even Jay Pandolfo has said, like, he is ready to go do it. And we're supporting that. And so, I know there were some comments that came out of the combine, but if you actually watched that was a small clip. Like they only printed basically the response. They didn't actually print the question. And so the response they printed was very misleading based on the question. The question was, if you were to go back, what could it do for your game? So then he went into a response of what it could do for his game if he went back. They took that quote, they ran with it. And then I'm getting text messages from people like, from every walk of hockey saying, well, Celebrini's coming back. And I'm like, I wouldn't get your hopes too high on that. But, look, we're talking about Celebrini and these star players. And I think that segues us into a topic, Butchie, that, I wanted to broach with you because I've seen you doing, publicity for it on social media, and that's the World Cup, or not the World Cup, Four Nations Challenge, right? And I think one of the big questions that everybody wants to talk about right now is this going to be the best American team, most talented, deepest, a team that finally could really give Canada a run for their money in a gold medal game. And I'm wondering, because I'm sure you're going to be involved in the broadcast in some way, shape, or form. You did the World Cup last time. What's your take on this, where the U.S. team is at, and where do you see them going with this roster?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they've been obviously back in '94, that was an amazing World Cup victory for the U.S. and that team was so much fun. Again, we talk about personality. I'm just thinking about the personalities on that team. I mean, you talk about extroverts everywhere, so fun, so interesting, really helped the popularity of the sport. With that, again, just the personality of it. It's one thing to win, but you like to win with interesting people. Like the '04 Red Sox with Poppy and Manny and Johnny Damon. That it just adds more to it, than just winning. It's not all about just winning. It's the personalities, it's the fun, it's the drama. That's what makes it even more. That's what makes it intoxicating. That's what we want. But for sure. And the U.S. has been close for, obviously we go to overtime in Vancouver. You're just 1 goal away, 1 shot away from beating Sidney Crosby and Canada in Vancouver. That one still hurts a lot. And of course, Salt Lake City, obviously you're on home soil. You want to get that done. So we've always certainly have been close. But obviously the scales have really tipped in a big way now, and they'll continue to tip that way as Canada continues to get lower participation from youth playing hockey. And it just seems like, their country's changing so quickly, so fast. You just wonder if how much it's going to affect their hockey. But no, the U.S. is the USA Hockey, the way they've really been trying to produce hockey players starting 10, 15 years ago. And when my kid was 10, 11 years old, I remember them, Brett's 31 now. So that's 20 years ago when they really couldn't, why is Sweden producing all these amazing, talented players? They're a tiny country. We have 300 million. We have 300 million. We should be doing a better job. What are they doing? Oh, well, they're practicing more than they play when they're 7 years old. They're not playing 6 games a week and practicing once. And so they started to understand the small ice drills and all that stuff. So it's starting to pay off now with a generation of incredibly talented American players. And I can't wait to start to kind of get the piece of paper out and pick the lines and pick the teams. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll see how it all. We don't know how these things feel or look until we do it. So will this really feel like a big time type Olympic event? Will it be, will it be a tear down? We don't know until we actually see the uniforms, feel the games in Montreal and Boston.
The uniforms is something I'm curious about too. I think those are going to be, I hope they kind of make it like a little bit more new and modern kind of uniforms. I do like the classic USA hockey stuff, but it's not the Olympics.
They'll do different things to sell jerseys. So just there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, look, and people in the chat are talking about the fact that not having Russia there means it's not best on best, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with those comments. We don't need to get into the geopolitical side of all this. I do agree with all you though. I don't. I know the Olympics are the year after. I hope Russia's playing, whether it's under their own flag or whether it's under some weird name that they use. But I do hope that those guys get to play. Punishing Nikita Kucherov and Alexander Ovechkin and some of these other guys who live here, who are embedded in our culture, not getting to play, and all you're doing is hurting the fans of the game. That's all you're doing.
They should be there. Russia should be playing in the World Junior. They should be playing in this. They should be playing in all of this stuff.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I'm just curious, off the top of your head, Bucci, our producer Vic has notified us that on June 28th, they released the first 6 players for each team.
Oh, wow.
Curious who your first 6 would be for the U.S. team.
Wow. I mean, certainly
not to throw you on the hot seat here, but
no, it's not. Well, certainly, Matthews, Eichel as your, 1-2 centers probably is obviously, a really good place, a good place to start. You need a goaltender, and certainly, Jeremy Swayman, I think, has proven to be.
Yeah.
He's ahead of the American class now. I really think he is. It's just off the playoffs. Maybe it was him or Ottinger, but now it's probably going to be Swayman.
Let me ask you before you even finish. Who gets left out now on goal? Because you've got Hellebuck, Demko, Swayman, and Ottinger. Who's going to be the odd man out of that group for these next 2 international tournaments? And I know the Olympics is a ways away and a lot can happen, but one of the best 8 goalies in the world or 10 goalies in the world are not going to be playing in these tournaments.
Yeah, well, Swayman's definitely, the way he played in the playoffs, is now the number 1 American goaltender. He goes in as number 1. Obviously, Hellebuck really struggled last couple of times. Ottinger was good. So I would say right now it's going to be Swayman, Ottinger, probably 1-2. Even though Hellebuck's going to win the Vezina, probably. But it's the way they play. So I think Swayman will be the goalie they pick. Plus, he's such a popular, likable guy.
You speak about personality, right? Like he's the personality you want to win with.
That and again, just in terms of your initial question, the initial 6 you want to unveil, you want that to be kind of sexy, kind of sizzle, right? And he does that. He's an original 6 player, very popular, great personality. So, like I said, Matthews, Eichel, him, and then from there, you're looking for D-men. They're probably one defenseman. Who's your number 1 defenseman pick amongst American-born? Adam Fox, probably Fox running the power play and.
Fox or McAvoy. Probably Fox or McAvoy. And look,
you got to go Fox with this Norris Trophy under his belt, right?
It also depends on the political side of it, because there is politics involved in hockey. Like, do they take 2 of the Hughes brothers and it's more just, to make them smile and full well knowing that Fox will be on the team and McAvoy. I mean, we know what a lot of this team will look like. And I think the same thing goes with the Tkachuk brothers. Like, do they get added in the first 6? I mean, we know those 2 brothers are playing. It's not even, a question. And then, where does Patrick Kane fall within this group of people? I mean, who's been, the GOAT for a while. So I think it's going to bring a lot of interesting stories. And I will look forward to, Butchie, when you start laying these out on Twitter, because you do have a history of calling these things early. You do. You can look at articles that you wrote 10 and 15 years ago about guys who are still playing, and they're all creeping towards a lot of those predictions and those projections that you've made. So there's going to be some good intrigue there. And I think, for me, one of the biggest areas that US has a big advantage on Canada in this tournament is going to be in goal. Like, I don't know. I think there's way more question marks, than answers in goal for Canada right now.
But you can only play one at a time. So if you got one guy who's hot, it's it's not like you have to fill a deep core of 3 lines. So you only need the one. But Matthew Tkachuk's a guaranteed first 6 guy for sure, no doubt. So if you go, Eichel, Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk as your 3 forwards, and then if you want 2D and Swayman as your goalie, whether it be Fox and like you said, maybe Quinn Hughes, or I would say because Quinn just won is going to win the Norris probably, so you get a fresh trophy out of him. You might get a Stanley Cup champion in Tkachuk, the last 2 from Eichel and Tkachuk, and then of course Matthews, the best goal scorer on the planet right now. That'd be a cool 6 that I would probably go with right now. Here's
the question though, Bucci: does Patrick Kane fit in on this roster?
Yeah, I think there's I'll do this today. Maybe this is a good. It's a beautiful day.
We got a project for you today.
Yeah, because you got to figure out he has to play with a certain group. He's obviously not a checker. Does he deserve a top 6? But can you formulate a third line where he can kind of fit in? It's interesting, but certainly you want him on the team. Would he accept being on the team if he's not gonna play as an extra? Would he do that? I don't, almost like a Ryder Cup assistant captain kind of thing, where like the captain will bring in some of his buddies to kind of as a support, because no one's been better and more patriotic playing for Team USA than Patrick Kane the last 20 years. He's the guy. He's the beacon. So if he wants to be there, wants to experiment, wants that sweater that eventually gets framed in his house, and absolutely, I think he should be a part of it if he wants to. And those are conversations you can easily have and get the temperature of.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of think the same thing. Marchand
still a point per game,
Canada, right? Like, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
he's probably on it, right?
He's on it because he's Crosby's wingman, and they can get a younger, maybe another guy to play with them. Try to pinpoint that one guy who will fit in. Remember the Bergeron, Marchand, Crosby line from the World Cup, and just try to find that other guy a little younger. But there's no doubt that Marchand and Crosby would pace themselves next season to peak for that tournament. No doubt about it. It would mean a lot to them. And Marchand's the kind of all-in guy you want on a team, no matter what kind of competition you're playing. And like I said, he's always been Crosby's wing guy. And so I don't see why they wouldn't do it again and then find that one other winger that they fit complements them the best, some right-handed shot, awesome kind of winger who can be big and score. And who would that be in Canada? Like a right-handed shot guy that could
Stammer.
I was looking for a younger guy, like a little more pace, to try to help them out, support them with pace, and almost be like a Pasternak guy.
Let me ask you a question: is Braden Point a righty or a lefty?
Yeah, he's a righty.
Yeah, he's a righty. That's it. I like that.
He's on Team Canada. There's no world where he's not.
Yeah. We're thinking line mate though.
There's no world. I mean, that guy plays with as much pace as anyone. I mean, you know that I love the way that he plays. So look, a lot of intrigue. I mean, I think this is going to add a lot of fun to the season next year for NHL fans.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of best on best. It's the only mark against Gary Bettman in his long career as NHL commissioner is the lack of best on best. Because that's when you get international interest and casual interest. I'm really curious to see those ratings next year. How they compare to the All-Star game, how they even compare it to the Stanley Cup Final. Because we have some good time slots on ABC and ESPN and primetime stuff. You wonder would a USA. Here's a question. This is a fun little question, you guys. Do you do polls on the morning cup of hockey?
Yeah.
Like, what will rate more? A USA Canada Gold 4 Nations game, prime time, Thursday night, February, whatever that is, or the next game, Edmonton, and will it be Stanley Cup numbers? Will it be 3 million American numbers?
I think, and
will
Vic,
it be 2?
Vic, put this in the chat so we can hear from everybody's opinion on this. I'll go first, Johnny.
This is Panthers Oilers. This isn't like a Blackhawk versus Penguins Stanley Cup Final.
USA versus Canada. USA versus Canada will outrate Stanley Cup Finals games this year. Now, but then the only caveat,
not a game 7. Because that would probably beat it. Yeah.
But the only thing that I've seen the US numbers, Butchie, but I don't know what the Canadian TV numbers are. I haven't seen those, but I think you would have the entire country. Like, I think it would be massive, a US Canada gold medal game on ABC and Sportsnet in Canada or whatever. Like, the ratings would outrate a Stanley Cup game, in my opinion, Johnny. I don't know what you think about
No,
it.
I fully agree, because with that too, I mean, I'm not a soccer fan, but I watch USA Soccer when they play, right?
Right.
Like, I think
That-
it's
I'm
a
the same way.
patriotic thing,
I'm the same way. Yeah.
So I think there's way more USA fans than there are Florida Panther fans. You know what I mean? So I think when you bring the whole country in, it probably should have better ratings. But again, like, not to knock or discredit this final, right? Like,
No,
I think, this final has been,
it was more talk about the success of the four nations in February, when we're in the middle of the hockey season, not like the last World Cup was in August. So maybe the players weren't really into it as much. And the fans not yet. The weather's still good. It's August, but now with the February, again, same month as an Olympic would be. Well,
awesome.
It's going to be really cool and good for the NHL and for the networks it'll be a good run through experiment. See, will this really pop? And if it does, they'll do another one right away. Like, they'll do it in the next year. This will become an annual thing, and especially if they get to keep all the revenue, and they don't have to give it to to the Olympics. So the more they can control, and if this thing really pops, and they're getting, like I said, 3-4 million people. That could be a game changer for the NHL calendar.
Yeah.
What I am wondering though, and granted, these things happen, you can't really control them. The February timing of it, I'm almost curious if it might be too close to a playoff push, and how it might affect, some star players that are then playing April, May, June. I think in 2014, again, like I said, these things happen. It's not necessarily a guarantee, but like, John Tavares gets hurt in Sochi.
Yeah,
Islanders playoff chances down the drain.
It's a risk, no doubt.
Things like that. Who is the Mets pitcher in like the baseball World Cup last year? Edwin Diaz got hurt and missed the whole season. These things kind of happen.
There's
if a fucking Toronto Maple Leaf gets hurt in this thing, you won't hear the end of it. And
listen, it doesn't matter. You could get hurt in an all-star game. You could get hurt in practice. You're not
gonna take care of Austin for me.
You're not gonna sit on that. So look, again, lots to talk about. Excited, Butchie. We know you'll be all over it. We know you'll be a big part of it. And not only that, but another event in the next couple of weeks, Butchie, that you're gonna have a big hand in is the NHL draft. We already talked about Celebrini, but give us an idea. You're going to be boots on the ground in Vegas, correct?
At the Sphere. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the Sphere. Haven't seen that new building yet. So the draft is in the Sphere.
What have you heard? Like, is there going to be any cool elements? Is there going to be, what should we expect to see out of ESPN's coverage for the draft?
The only thing I've heard, it's really expensive to do the draft there. That's all I've heard. They charge a pretty penny. But yeah, in terms of
MSG prices.
In terms of how we're going to use the technology, obviously, I guess every day there they have a movie. I think they show like the landscape of America. People they pay $100 and they fill it at least once a day. They generate like a 1.5 million a day just from this movie where people pay $100 to watch and sit in their seats, and their seats vibrate and they move around a little bit, like whatever, in conjunction with what's happening on the screen. So yeah, I wonder how much, but I have not heard yet any kind of a rundown how they're going to incorporate the technology into the presentation, the telecast, for people who were there, the players who were there, and the parents. As of course, this is the last big NHL draft, as you know. It's going to become centralized and look more like the other drafts. I don't know. I assume they're still going to go to arenas and stuff, and make it somewhat of a big deal that way. But obviously, the gigantic organization, they'll end up going somewhere else and not at the draft, which is kind of
they'll be in their little war rooms like in the NFL. Exactly.
Yeah. It's good seeing everybody in one place. So that's the one time you see everybody in the hockey world. Nashville was great last year, just walking down the street. Hey, there's Kyle Dubas. There's Brendan Shanahan. There's Scott Mellenby, all kinds of people. So it was a great way to see people. But yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing what it looks like. I'm not sure yet, but we'll head there in the end of June. It's on a Friday night, first round Friday night, the 28th, and then the rest of the draft on the 29th.
I know you're a creative guy. Would you have any ideas as far as the production goes to make it look a little cooler and make it pop a little bit more? I mean, I feel like it's a given to have, feel like you're inside an aquarium when the sharks go up there for the first pick, right? Like have little sharks running around. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, how that translates on television, I'm sure it's way better there. So yeah, but again, how much does that cost? How much? Who do you pay to run that? And what's the how much energy do they use every time they show a giant shark go across the top of the Sphere? What's your electric bill? So I don't know about that, but yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do to really make it pop and make it like no other draft ever. Quite frankly, let's face it.
Yeah.
There's no real building like this before. Your local planetarium, was cool, but this is, a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. Well, look, I know we covered a lot today. We're gonna get you out of here in a second, but the last thing I want to ask you about, because I think you could potentially give us some insight on it. The Edmonton Oilers are in the Stanley Cup Finals right now. The NHL draft is 2.5 weeks away. As it stands currently, their general manager, is not going to be their general manager next year. It's not a secret. So, do you have any idea what their succession plan is? What is this? Does Ken Holland have a plan? Has he been hamstrung by his team's run with his ability to go land one of these other GM jobs? Is he want to go play golf for the next couple of years? Like, what should we expect out of that situation? Because I know that, you and Ken are friends. You guys go on golf trips together. So maybe you have a little insight into, the way he's looking at this or thinking about it.
Yeah, I really think he's focused on the Stanley Cup run. He didn't want to talk to other teams while this was going on. I think whether it's karma or just he's old school that way, he's all in on Edmonton. Those things can take care of themselves. If for some reason there was a year off, he's fine. He could certainly do a consulting job with somebody. Those are easy, type of job. He's friends with Don Waddell. Maybe they find something little for him to be a support arm for him as he waits things out to see if there's anything out there. But I think he's focused on the games and really would love to win that cup. And then from there, I'm sure things will start to happen for him, but he just doesn't want to, look for other jobs while this is going on. So, and as far as Edmonton, once Jackson came in and they obviously the power shift there and maybe they know in the back of their mind who they're going to hire, but I haven't heard anything on that front in terms of who they're going to give the keys to in terms of a GM. They got the big decisions coming up. Leon Draisaitl's in the last year of his deal next year. So I assume you have to offer the 8-year, $13 million cap number to see if he takes it, or whatever number you want to offer him. And then if he doesn't take it, do you trade him this summer? Because, you get a lot of value, or do you just run it for one more year and try to win the cup, knowing that he's going to walk away for nothing? And even though you don't really walk away for nothing in the salary cap world, you have that slot, but it's harder to get people to come to Edmonton. You have to overpay to get them to come there. So, and then McDavid has 2 years left after this year. So this is big. That's why these games, that's why they have so much pressure on them in these Stanley Cup playoffs, because the window does appear to be very small unless they both re-up. And hey, we're going to hang here. We're the kings of the hill here. We're the big dogs. We play in an unbelievable arena. It's maybe the best in the NHL. And once the season's going on, does it matter really where you live? You're grinding through a long season. You can always travel summer if you want to travel somewhere warm. So it'd be very interesting to see if they both re-up and just give it a long shot, or if this is the end of the run.
Well, I'm kind of curious, and this is my last question too. With that said, something I always think back to is when Nathan McKinnon and the Avalanche lost to the Golden Knights, I think the year or 2 years before they ended up winning the cup, and Nate came out and said, like, I've been in this league 9 years. I haven't won shit,
Yeah,
right. And I think about these two teams, and while it would be incredibly fun to see Florida win, like with the guys in their team that, can party and have a great time, like Montour, Cousins, Lomberg, Tkachuk, these guys they're a fun group.
Good
like,
call.
I've been in that room. They're a fun group. But on the flip side, I mean, Connor McDavid, I feel like just for his personality, Bucci, we talk about personalities, like for him to win one and finally have that weight off his shoulders, I think we need that because, he's a guy who, let's face it, he's not the happiest guy all the time, right? So
yeah, right.
The flip side of this, is it almost worse with Edmonton losing or like better with what I'm trying to say here? It's hard to formulate the exact question.
Well, there's always great stories on both sides. That's why I really don't root for anybody. Like, I know how much would it mean for Keith Tkachuk to have his family's surname on the Stanley Cup, because that would be a moment for his dad and his granddad and of course his son. And Matthew knows this is about the family being on the cup, and it's not just him. It's not an individual award for him. He knows that his dad would love to see Tkachuk on the cup. And because of what it means for his dad, like I said, and grandfather, this is a blue collar family from the greater Boston area, and to have their name on the greatest trophy in sports, that's a family moment. So that really warms me to think about that. But you're right, whether it's Holland with winning the cup in a big FU to Edmonton on the way out the door, or it's like you said, McDavid, just entire body just relaxing, and he can just go out and let's play hockey now. Leon, the serious German, just, fighting and fighting. So there's a million stories that everybody, and, Chris Knobloch, he's set up for 10 years if he wins. He's still already probably set up anyway, but this gives him a 10-year runway of 2 contracts, like a Mike Sullivan runway, right? And so it just changes lives. That's what the great thing is. And both sides have a group of people where it really changes their lives more than others. But everyone, you can't tell me that the Stanley Cup wouldn't mean as much to Lomberg that it does McDavid, right? Same. He's a real dude and loves hockey as much as anybody. So, but yeah, those couple of those stories I focused on, the Tkachuk family in Holland and McDavid, and it's and Barkov's place in the game will really rise up. Now he can soar to the Hall of Fame, and so it's a great time. It's a great time and a great playoffs. And look, there's always stories.
Winning a cup for South Florida, you got to think about the effect that would have on youth hockey and growing hockey in a market where every NHL player right now wants to play. Just to build a brand new practice facility. I mean, look, I have friends down there that when Florida got good over the last 3 years, they've gotten themselves back into hockey. Like, they're playing men's league now, and now their kids are figure skating and they're ice skating. So there is a contagion that comes with being good and being exciting and winning, even in a place like, South Florida, where it's a non-traditional hockey market. Although 5 years in a row, Florida's in a cup final between the two teams.
And the East Coast League 3 in a row.
Exactly. So look, Butchie said it, lots of storylines. The last thing I want to say, check out Butchie's shirt right now. He's wearing the Melrose t-shirt. I had mine on yesterday. Cool. The white ones are super soft. If you like soft t-shirts, the white one is incredibly soft. Vic is going to put the website in the chat right now, butchieot.com. If you buy the Melrose gear, it goes donated to the Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Research Foundation. Correct, Butchie? You definitely stop me if I'm wrong.
That's it.
So get on the website, support the cause. Hopefully we get some overtime games and we can all play some Butchie overtime challenges. People love that. And if you are playing, if you don't win, go on and get a shirt. Get a Melrose shirt. Everybody loves Barry Melrose, right? There's no discourse there. Everybody loves Barry.
So yeah, sales have slowed. So I need your people. I need your audience to come on, give me a couple pops. I got nothing to do. I can go to the post office. I'll mail it today, right out today, and you'll get it quickly. So I appreciate the help. And he's a great man and in a tough fight. And we miss him and love him. And they did a great job. And he's a legend. I mean, he's a legend. No eyes, no nose, no ears, and it's him. That's when you're a legend.
You posted that photo on social media 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago now of him wearing the shirt, and I reposted. I can't tell you how many messages I got from people saying this made my day, and mine too. I mean, it's so. All right, we kept you too long. We always do. You know that. We never keep you for the time we say. It's always 2 or 3 times. So we appreciate it, Butchie. Enjoy the games. Let's hope for overtime. Get on the website, get the Melrose t-shirts, and support one of the best causes that you can support. All right, bud, go play golf and hit the gym. Have a good day.
Thanks, Bucci.
You got it.
Love it.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.